going to do a fresh tomato soup. It's a good time of year to bring in the last of the tomatoes and let them start to ripen. And this makes a great use of those tomatoes. I have 2 teaspoons of olive oil that are going in here, and then 1 small onion, if I can get it out from between everything else. And also in here, I'm going to put 2 stalks of celery. Now the vegetables are chopped fairly finely. This is not going to be a nice smooth soup like you get out of a can. This is going to be more almost along the line of a minestrone, except it's not going to have the beans in it, but it will have some pasta in there as well. So we'll put the 2 stalks of celery in here, and we'll stir these together with the olive oil and let them simmer or saute here for 4 to 5 minutes so they start to soften up just a little bit. Once the celery and the onion have gotten a little bit soft, we're going to go ahead and stir in 3 cloves of garlic that you cut up fairly well or minced, whichever you prefer. You could even go ahead and press them if you wanted to, if that's easier for you. And then I have 1 cup of frozen corn kernels. You could use canned here, but if you're using canned corn, I would hold off adding it. Make sure you drain it fairly well later on, although this is a soup, so it's not going to make that much difference. But I would add it a little bit later on in the cooking process. And then finally, I've got 1 cup of diced zucchini that's going to go in here too. So we're going to have lots of vegetables. We're going to let this saute for another 5 minutes, so you have time to get some of the other parts of your meal ready. You'll notice that I'm using a fairly large pot, but it's very tall and fairly narrow, and that's because the burner element that I'm using outside is also small, and I need to match it. If you're at home, you might want to use a wider pot so that you can get things to come to heat a little bit sooner. Takes a little bit longer when you're outside. I'm adding 6 cups of low sodium fat-free chicken broth, either from the market, your favorite brand, or some that you've made at home. Just bring this to a simmer, and then we'll be able to add the rest of ingredients and pretty much downhill from there. Okay, you can see here we've got this up to a simmer, and we're going to add the final ingredients to that. Now there are several, but remember this is going to make a fairly large pot of soup. It gives at least 6 servings, so you're working with a lot of food here. We're going to add 1½ cups of small pasta shells. Now I do recommend the small ones because it makes a nicer soup dish. The bigger ones are great for a sauce, but the small ones work better on a spoon for a sauce. Then we've got 4 cups of diced tomatoes. And if these are from your garden and they're not quite as ripe as you would like them to be when you're going to make a sandwich, that's a great way to use them in the soup. I would blanch them first so that you can remove the skins, put them in boiling water, 3 or 4 of them at a time in a great big spaghetti pot, and blanch them for anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds, and then the skin will come right off, and then you can just cool them in some icy water or cold water and proceed from there. As far as peeling them, the skins will just slide off. I'm also going to add a ½ teaspoon of salt, a ½ teaspoon of sugar to cut a little bit of the acid from the tomatoes. I've got a ½ teaspoon of black pepper that wants to stick to my container just a little bit more than I want it to. And then I'm also going to add 1 teaspoon of 3 different fresh herbs. I've got a teaspoon of fresh thyme, a teaspoon, or maybe a little more here, of fresh basil, and a teaspoon of fresh oregano. If you don't have fresh, I will be a little bit sad because the fresh really adds that great flavor, but you can use a dried form, just cut the amount in half. We're going to bring this back to a simmer and let it simmer basically until the pasta is ready. So whatever kind of pasta you've gotten, when that comes back up to a simmer, you want to check the package and make sure that you're going to cook it long enough that it'll get completely done. The other thing while we're letting that happen, I want to mention about your tomatoes that you pull off the garden. It's real important that you never put them in the refrigerator, because once they go in the refrigerator, it kills the ripening process. The texture is going to be mushy and they're never going to develop a good flavor. So keep them somewhere between 50 to 65 degrees if possible, even as they get ripe. And then also make sure that you store them with the stem side up, because if you store them this way, you're going to bruise the shoulders, and it doesn't take very long. You can see this one's only been sitting upside down for demonstration purposes for about a day, and you can already see what's happened with the shoulders. They're damaged, and you want your tomato to look good. So store them stem side up, room temperature if at all possible, or actually a little bit cooler than room temperature, but never, ever, ever the refrigerator. Okay, we can see we've got this one going a little bit stronger now that we finally got it going out here in the garden on our little hot plate. I checked one of the noodles and it's perfect. So we're going to go ahead and serve it up in a nice bowl. Remember, this makes 6 servings. It's definitely a main dish soup, but if you have some left over, it will keep for a few days in the refrigerator. You can try freezing it, but the pasta may not freeze very well for you. It's probably going to get a little bit mushy. So to that, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of Parmesan cheese over the top of that. And there you have it. Serve it with a great piece of cornbread. We've got a rustic kind of cornbread here today, and you have a wonderful meal. I hope you'll give this one a try. This is Fresh Tomato Soup, and for Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.